Welcome to the FarmBits podcast.
FarmBits is proudly produced by the Nebraska Digital Agricultural Team and hosted by students at the University of Nebraska.
The FarmBits podcast comes to you each week to discuss the trends, the realities, and the value of digital agriculture.
Through interviews with experts, producers, and innovators from across the agricultural industry, we hope that you step away from each episode with new practical knowledge of digital agriculture technology. Hello, FarmBits followers, and welcome to another episode of the FarmBits podcast. I'm Katie Bathke.
And I'm Deepak Himire, and we are glad to have you with us as we begin diving into the topic of utilizing artificial intelligence to leverage digital pest management with Nessie, CEO and founder of Agrio.
A bit about myself. I was born and raised in Israel. Studied physics until I got my PhD in theoretical physics in Oxford. And then I changed my subject a bit and become interested in AI, computer vision, and worked on several projects in the industry that were related to a medical device mainly. Few of the startups that I started are in advanced stages. And 5 years ago, I was starting to work on problems in agriculture that are related to computer vision. Agriculture is a subject in which the vision sense is very important. Crop advisors, agronomists, they go out to the fields and they inspect the plants with their eyes to see symptoms, and this is how they operate. So I thought that computer vision can play a very important role in this subject.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds quite interesting. Like from long way from physics, AI, and then now into something related with agriculture and pest management. That sounds interesting. So, can you please share with us, like, what is Agrio and how did this company start?
Yeah, so Agrio started 5 years ago. It's a company that is developing mobile and web application that help growers and crop advisors to manage plant protection. As I said, it's leveraging computer vision technology to solve problems of plant diagnosis, both based on images that are coming from smartphones and also remote sensing information such as satellite scans.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to get more into that during the interview. Can you first tell us where you're based out of and where are the majority of your customers based out of?
Yeah, so the management is based in Israel. We work from Israel, but we hire agronomists all around the world. Okay. The application is translated to 15 different languages, so we don't really have a market of focus.
Okay.
The app was downloaded by almost 1 million users all around the world. And this is how we operate. We want to be active all around all around the year. Agriculture is very seasonal, but we want to be able to learn and improve all around the year. So we are operating globally.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that really sounds interesting, like operating throughout several countries and then available in different languages. That would be of like huge help to farmers across different countries. So before we dive into the specific pest portion of this interview, can you please share with us what products does Agrio bring to the market today?
Yeah, so as I said, we are developing application, mainly mobile application. Most of our users, they don't use the computers, they use their smartphones. And we are making this technology accessible to them with mobiles. But we also offer a computer vision API, which is a programming interface for other developers to be able to integrate this component of plant diagnosis, which is based on image, in their products.
That's awesome. I love that you bring up that it's mobile because that is a lot of how producers operate. So I think that's really important for your market. Can you talk to us a little bit about what type of pest management we're specifically looking at? Like, do you look at just insects, pathogens, weeds, or do you kind of do it all?
Yeah, so when a user take a picture of a plant, we need to be able to identify any symptom. We are mainly focused on diseases, insect pests, and nutritional deficiency.
Absolutely.
But if someone capture an image of some kind of damage, for example, mechanical damage or salinity or something like that, we at least need to be able to say that it's not a disease or a pest. So for us to provide a complete solution, we are training the system to identify any visual symptom that can be seen on the plant.
Yes. And then can you talk to us about what crops you're mainly focused around? It sounds like you have like a really broad range.
Yeah, so in the last 5 years, the system is learning all the time from examples. And in the last 5 years, we got millions of images of many different crops. We were able to train the system on something like 100 different crops. All the main agricultural crops are available on the system.
That's really cool.
Yeah. A lot of like different kind of pests ranging from whatever it might be, and then different kind of crops. That really sounds interesting, and we look forward. So with this note, can you please talk to us about the advantages your digital scouting platform brings to the table, and particularly what role the artificial intelligence plays in this product?
Yeah, so with the scouting, digital scouting solution that we are offering, we want to solve two problems. One is to help inexperienced scouts to do the work, and also to save time to the experienced scout. Scouting is a very time-consuming, and as I said before, it involves a lot of visual inspecting. It can be for example, counting insects, trying to estimate the level of infestation, and those are very time-consuming tasks. So what we are trying to do is to leverage this engine that we developed, the computer vision engine, in order to solve problems that are related to those things. So, for example, we will allow scouts to take an image of a leaf with whiteflies, and we will count the number of eggs, or we will count the number of insects, so that we will save time, and we'll be able to do everything on the fly as the scout is moving around.
Yeah.
We also, before the scout is even arriving to the field, we are helping them to prioritize the visit. So we show them what we think, where we think are the main problems based on satellite imagery, for example, or things that we saw in previous seasons. So we help them to go to those hot spots. And the AI is both coming in the part of the image processing, and also we are helping them to interact with this assistant with a voice. So we want to prevent situation in which the scouts need to stand in the field and type into the phone. We help them to interact, to give instructions to the scout assistant that we build with voice commands, record the insights, and we are helping them to complete the report, the scouting report, before they leave the fields, and to share them with their clients or with their supervisors and so on. So basically the scout is going out. If you have many fields that you need to scout, it doesn't need to worry about it. You just take pictures, recording insights, and we are arranging everything on the map. We are sorting things, insights based on fields, locations, and so on. And in the end of the day, you can share many PDF reports based on fields or different growers that he sells with a click of a button.
That's such a powerful tool after having been a crop scout for a couple of years. Like, I think that's incredible that you're incorporating the satellite imagery to better understand where these hotspots are and how those crop scouts can start to interact. Because without that prior knowledge, you kind of go out there and you're waiting to see what you're going to see. So I think that's really important. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your Agrio Shield product looks like on a farmer's operation? And do you have like a specific success story from a grower?
Yeah, so Agrio Shield, naively, the first thing that we thought about is, okay, we get thousands of images from users every day, and we know exactly what is going on regarding diseases and pests all around the world. So if someone is identifying a problem now in this field, it makes sense to at least alert the farmers in the region, telling them that there is a problem now and they need to take attention and see maybe they need to apply a preventative measure and so on. And we took it to the next level when we started to model the spread to the far future, look at the weather, look at trends of migration of pests and diseases, for example, how the wheat rice rust is going from Argentina north to the US and so on, in order to be able to give alerts when preventative measures still can prevent the damages. And we have many successes with this system. I think that one of the one that was maybe most talked about is when we identified the invasion of the fall armyworm to India. The fall armyworm is very common in the US, in South America. But when we identified for the first time the fall armyworm in India, it was in July 2018. And it was the first time that the farmers saw this pest. So all the information which was transferred for them, we sent push notification in the mobile phones when we identified for the first time after a farmer uploaded an image in South India, and the AI identified that it's a fall armyworm. Agronomist verified that the identification was correct, and when we saw that, we alerted tens of thousands of farmers in South India, and we injected all the information that we know about the pest, what are the effective treatments and so on. We injected it with push notifications to their phone so that they will be able to deal with this devastating insect.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to use, like, to have a predictive tool in farmers' hands and have that, like, you make it sound like it's like an instant notification, like an email, which I think is really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. That's something like farmer will always be looking to before getting like into the product damage or crop damage by those insects. If they can get those kind of informations beforehand, of course, like their management would be very easy and effective. So as we learned that
I would just say that what we are trying to do is we are trying to do integrated pest management in a wide area, and I think that digital solutions can coordinate those efforts and make it very effective for the farmers to deal with pests and diseases.
Yeah, I think so too. I love that.
Yep. So we learned that you have a pest life cycle tracking feature within your products. So can you please talk about that and how does this pest life cycle tracking feature works?
Yeah, so development of insects is heavily dependent on weather, temperature, and what we are trying to do. And we know that there are some stages in the insect life cycle in which the pesticides will work much better. For example, when the egg hatching in some moth caterpillars, it's going to be the best timing to spray the insecticides. There is another aspect when you see already the infestation in the field, you want to be able to predict when the next generations will arrive. Sometimes it can be up to 5 generations, and you want to be able to predict it and to prepare. Maybe you were surprised by the first generation, but if you can predict the next generations, you will be able to do much better.
Absolutely.
So what we did is once you download the app and you just put your field on the map and you tell us what you grow, we have a list of pests that we are tracking, and we are asking you for minimal feedback. For example, we can ask you to install a trap and to tell us when you catch the first insect, and when you do that, we start to track for you the life cycle of the pest. So we can tell you in 5 days we predict that the egg will hatch, and this is when you need to apply, and we will go with you stage by stage, and we will allow you to give us feedback in order to fine-tune if we are having if we are still in the phase that we are learning about this pest in this new territory and so on. So we call it a daily briefing. Whenever you open the app, we will give you the full picture of all the pests that we know how to track and which stage they are and what you need to do, if you need to renew the traps, if you need to apply pesticides, and so on. We also do it with plants. So we are tracking the stages of the plants, and once we see that the plant is in a stage in which maybe it's more, it can be damaged by some kind of a pest, we will instruct you what to look for and what to put the emphasis when you are doing the scouting.
Wow. It's really cool. I like how there's so many aspects to your product that create this functionality for the growers. I think that's really unique, and I haven't quite seen that in scouting apps before. So that's really awesome. Can you talk to us a little bit? It sounds like you have a vast range of where your products can be applied, what it sounds like across the globe. So could you talk to us kind of how your tool interacts with yearly climate differences between different regions and kind of how it handles those different growing conditions?
Yeah, so as I said, it's a learning system. So if we are going to introduce a model, for example, we talked right now we talked about the life cycle of pests. If we are going to introduce a new model to a new territory, there will be a phase in which we will learn. As I said in the beginning, we are getting thousands of images every day. So we do have a lot of information about the development of pests already in many territories. But still, there are several phases. So we do fine-tune every model that we have to a territory before it's becoming fully functional.
Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds great. So as we are talking about the pest, and there can be a lot of like implications or economic risks because of the pest to the farmers' operations. Can you please explain to us how the Agrio products can help bridge that gap?
Yeah, so everything that we are doing is to try to take maybe somehow sophisticated methods that were developed in integrated pest management practices and make them very simple so that everyone can implement them. We talked, for example, about the life cycle of pests. So to do this tracking yourself, to measure the temperature every hour and go and manage Excel sheets in which you are doing all the calculations yourself is very complicated, and I think that most farmers will not do it. But once we are using remote sensing devices in order to measure the temperatures, the temperatures in your field, and we are using hyperlocal, weather information. So the information that we are providing about the weather to the farmers is in a very high resolution. It's going to be a field specific. It's going to be in a 3-kilometer resolution. So once we do that for you and you don't need to bother and to manage those Excel sheets, and we are also bringing all the knowledge about the modeling and so on, we are lowering the risk for the farmers. We are making very sophisticated methods that were developed by very smart people. We are just making them more accessible. We help farmers to, so I said that we got millions of images from farmers. What we did is we took those images and we started to look at the corresponding satellite scans. So whenever we see a problem in the field, we're trying to go back and look at the scans, for example, from 2 weeks ago, and see if we can find patterns of problems in the scans before the farmer saw the symptoms on the plant in the field. And we see that we can train an AI system to identify those patterns in wavelengths that are not visible to the human eye. And based on this very large data, and we have a lot of information and data that we can use, we are able to find patterns that provide farmers with tools to apply preventative measures, or at least to treat the problem in a very early stage and lower the risk of losing yield and losing crop to pest and disease.
Absolutely. I think that's such an important aspect to your product as well. Can you talk to us about some of the biggest challenges you've been faced in dealing with pest management and kind of how you've trained your system to overcome these challenges?
Yes, so we talked about many territories, and I think that a very important subject is the fact that pests develop resistance to pesticides, and it's becoming more complicated when you are trying to serve many territories, because every pest in every territory has a different resistance to pesticides, and you need to learn that. What we are doing is that we are not stopping our service when we provide the advice. We are asking for feedback from the growers, and luckily they are cooperating very well with us. And they are telling us what kind of treatment recommendations that we provided were useful or not useful. And in that way, we are able to also take those things into account and learn what kind of treatment protocols work and where they work, and to optimize on that as well. But pesticide resistance is quite challenging.
I was wondering if resistance ever played a role in the training of your product. I like that you really bring up that there's this interaction with the growers. I think that's a really key aspect when implementing digital tools. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Like once having just the images and then just providing support to them would not be beneficial, as long as you again hear back from them and see if your products are actually helping them or there needs to be some changes to the products. I think that's quite useful to advance them further and help farmers more.
I would agree.
So we're trying also, I will just say that we are also trying to use remote sensing in order to see how effective the treatment was. The feedback from the growers is for sure important, but we are also trying to see those things remote sensing.
Yeah. That sounds great. And as the technologies are advancing, and there are being different tools, different technologies that are coming up to help farmers in the pest management. So can you please share with us what are you most looking forward into the future of integrating recent tools and technologies in pest management?
Yeah, so I think that the ultimate solution is completely autonomous scouting of fields. I mean, it's going to be human beings, scouts, are very limited by the area of fields that they can cover. And therefore, I think that in the end of the day, we need some kind of robots that are able to either fly or drive in the field and inspect plants as scouts are doing. It's very challenging because many times the scouts need to do a very non-trivial intervention. For example, to flip the leaf, which is something that it's still very challenging for a robot to do, or to pull the plant out of the ground. And in the end of the day, I think this is where it's going. And in those systems, for sure, the basic thing that those robots will need to have is the vision system, is the ability to inspect plants as human beings are doing. And for us, this is the vision of the company, to provide this engine that is able to augment those machines out there. By the way, it doesn't have to be autonomous machine. It can be any machine that is already exploring the fields and provide them with the ability to see and to analyze the plants. I'm not sure if it's answering your question.
Oh, no, I think it's an interesting take. Thank you for sharing. I do, I'm not as familiar on the robotic side, but there are some people trying to develop those things to do more remote sensing at the field scale level with that. So I think that's a really interesting perspective. Thank you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you might want to add or mention to share with our listeners?
Yeah, we covered quite a lot.
Yes.
I think that maybe it's important to say that it's the farmers in the end of the day are playing a very important role in this development of technology. Technology companies cannot do it without the feedback and the ping pong with the users. All technology in the end of the day is developed with both sides taking active part in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also want to mention that researchers are using our tool. I think that we didn't talk about it, but for example, there are experiments that researchers are doing with, for example, seed treatments, and they are applying on some sections of the field, and they are using remote sensing in order to monitor those experiments remotely. It's also an interesting thing that we didn't touch.
Awesome.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the products and how these technologies are being leveraged to farmers. So can you please share, like, if our listeners who want to learn more about the Agrio and its products, where can they go, or where can they find more information, and how can they connect?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's agrio.app, and we are also operating a very active blog there. We are writing a new post every week, so farmers, users, advisors can follow us there. We're also very active in all the main social media platforms. So please follow us.
Perfect. And then we have one last question for you. There's a tradition on the FarmBits podcast to ask for a piece of advice. What advice do you have for farmers that are facing challenges in pest management today?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, but I will say my personal impression, and I get it all the time, is that when we talk with farmers and when we suggest, I will talk about biological treatment. This is something that I need, which is underutilized by growers. So whenever we talk with growers about biological treatments, especially fungicides, they are very skeptical in the beginning, but they are very surprised by the results. And this is something that we are trying to push very hard on the platform. We don't have any economical interest or so on, but we find it very, very useful. And I'm surprised that it's not that it's underutilized. So my suggestion maybe is to give it a chance and to be less skeptical about it.
Thank you very much to Nessie for taking the time to join this episode of the FarmBits podcast. It's really exciting to see how the tools developed based on artificial intelligence and computer vision are helping farmers for taking decisions on pest management and crop protection.
One of my favorite parts of this episode and what this company is doing is the vast knowledge base of pest management across many pests, crops, and territories. It truly is a valuable tool for the partnership between digital pest management and any grower's operation.
I agree, and I think how these tools and products are providing farmers for early scouting and tech management decisions is really fascinating. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and we look forward to sharing another digital ag story with you next week on FarmBits. Thank you for taking the time to join us today on the FarmBits podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts to be informed about the latest content each week.
We welcome your feedback, so if you have any comments or questions for us, please reach out to us over email, on Twitter, or in the reviews section of your favorite podcast platform. Our contact information can be found in the show notes.
We would like to thank Nebraska Extension for their support of this podcast and their commitment to providing high-quality informational material to members of the agricultural community in Nebraska and beyond.
The opinions expressed by the host and guest on this podcast are solely their own and do not reflect the views of Nebraska Extension or the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
We look forward to you joining us next week for another episode of FarmBits.